Welcome back to Learn Middle English with me, Dr. Grace Hammond. It's been a little hiatus. I got a little busy, but now I'm here to get you hooked up with a couple more lessons. And today we're going to work on pronunciation. And pronunciation, I'll be frank with you, it's a little fuzzy. Obviously, there's no one alive today who actually spoke or heard Middle English before. So this is based off of really high quality guesses from very accomplished scholars of language, what we're working on right now. And it also is not the central piece of the puzzle in your Middle English learning journey. If you aren't particularly interested in pronunciation because you're just doing it for fun and not for a classroom or for reading aloud in some context, then you can skip this one if you want to. But it is kind of fun to know. And it is really fun to read it out loud and feel the difference kind of deep in your bones as you read. I'm going to read you the beginning of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the famous beginning of the prologue. And this is what I want you to be working on as you practice, because these lines, if you can learn them and recite them, they're what everybody in the olden days till now uses to learn Middle English. When I was an undergrad at the University of Arizona, my professor had us memorize these lines and come into his office hours and recite them for extra credit, and I still remember them. So I'm going to read it to you, though, just so that I don't get stage fright on the video and mess up. Here we go. This is what Middle English sounds like. One that April with his surest solta, the drucht of March hath persed to the rota, and bathed every vein in switch liqueur, of which virtue engendered is the flour. One Zephyrus eke with his sweete breath, in spirit hath in every holt and hath, the tender croppus and the younge sonne, hath in the ram his half course irona. And smalle fooles maken melodie, that slepen o the nicht with open ear. So pricketh him nature in her courages, then longen folk to goon on pilgrimages. I'll stop right there. That's the beginning of Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And so, listening to me, here are some things you might have noticed about Middle English pronunciation. Let's talk about consonants first. Everything is pronounced. We are not in the same world as modern English, where we have all these sneaky little letters that have disappeared. So take the word knight, like a knight in shining armor. In Middle English, you would pronounce every single consonant in that word. So knight becomes knicht. It's kind of funny. So if you were curious about why we all have all those hidden vowels, hidden consonants in modern day English, they generally used to be pronounced. So a word like night becomes knicht. So most consonants sound the same, except you would always roll your R's just a little bit. So you might have noticed showers, showers. See, I roll my R just a little bit there. And if you're one of those folks who has trouble rolling their R's, this is an opportunity for you to practice a little bit and have a little fun. Now, consonants are pretty simple. Like I said, all pronounced. GH's kind of make a kind of sound, and everything else is pretty much the same. Vowels, on the other hand, sound really different. This is because of something called the Great Vowel Shift that happened in English, sort of in between medieval English and like later early modern English. And we're not going to really dive into that. We may dive more into it on a later episode. It's actually super weird and interesting. If you're a linguistics buff, you probably already know about it, and it's kind of a funky idea that our vowels have changed sounds in this language, but they have. So short vowels mostly sound the same, except A, which sounds like an ah sound. So if I was talking about pat, like patting on a shoulder, I would say pot, pot. Long vowels have changed a lot. And that's where the great vowel shift came in. And then we'll talk more about those in a second. I'll show you a little diagram I have. And also all of this information is available on the Chaucer Harvard website, which is super helpful if you need a little catch me up. It's also, when you buy editions of the Canterbury Tales, it's often diagrammed at the beginning of those. Not in every edition, I can't make any promises, but in some of the teaching ones it is. So you can check yours and see if it's there as well. So, and the last vowel before we look at that chart to think about is E, the final E, which is usually pronounced. And it can be either kind of a schwa sound, like a, or it can even be a little bit more of like an E sound. So depending on what school of pronunciation you belong to. So think of like tale, like a story, T-A-L-E. In Middle English, that becomes tala. You always hear that middle E on the end. That means that final E in Middle English. So here is a little chart of vowel sounds. All right, so here's my little silly shorthand chart that you can find online at the Chaucer website or sometimes in your book as well. Here you have the spelling in the word, so like in the word night, for instance. And when you see a Y or an I, it's going to sound like E sound. So this word is mine, but in Middle English we would say mina. Night, we would say knicht. And so on and so forth. So E sounds more like A. For me, pick me, we have me, or beat, beta. Another version of E is more of an A, so rada for read. Then we have A. It sounds like A as in father, a. So for late or mate in modern English, we have lata, mata for Middle English. And then we have U or OU, which sounds like oo as in boot. So husa and musa, which are some of my favorites. And then the actual O or OO, it's more of an OA or A sound. So goda, boot for good and boot. So there you have it. So those are the basics of pronouncing Middle English. And the more you do it, the easier it will come to you. It's a little hard to remember at first, but I personally tend to aim for an accent that leaves me sounding like a Scottish person trying to speak Spanish. That's my sort of sweet spot of my quick and dirty English, Middle English accent. It's not always accurate or perfect, but it does sort of approximate some of the vowel noises in a way that is useful, especially as you're first beginning to pronounce Middle English. If you'd like to take me up on a Middle English challenge, I'd love to hear you read the first 19 lines of the Canterbury Tales, and I will totally repost them. And you can pretend that you are in a beginning Middle English class on your local college campus, learning how to read Middle English and reciting it to your professor. I'd love to see your attempts. I'm sure they're going to be awesome. And my last hot tip is if you can practice with other people, it's even better. Other people who are learning. Even in grad school, my friends and I would sometimes get together, have a little drink, and we would read Middle English aloud to each other, especially before conferences and things like that, when we knew we were going to have to read Middle English in public because we were rather nervous about it, wanted to practice. But reading together is the best kind of practice. So let me know how it goes. Good luck.